The story begins with four kingdoms living along the coast. A kingdom called Maui, a kingdom called Ohio, a kingdom called Oahu, and a kingdom called Kauai. Anyway, these four kingdoms believe in a prophecy that's supposed to happen, that someone will come and unite the four kingdoms. Why though? Because the four kingdoms are constantly at war with one another, and the person who's destined to unite them is supposed to end this war and make them all live in peace. Now we leave those four kingdoms and go to some people who are sailing in a boat in the middle of the water. Their leader is named Kiana. Kiana is very brave, bold, and courageous. For example, he saw a shark in the water and the guy jumped in himself to hunt it. So what did he do? He tied it with a rope like a cowboy, grabbed onto the shark, then took some dirt and put it in the shark's gills. That was to make the shark lose its ability to breathe. And indeed, Kiana succeeds and catches the shark easily, as if he were catching a tilapia fish in a lake, dear viewer. So if you're interested in continuing to watch, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave your name in the comments section, because I've got a gift for you all to celebrate us reaching 2,000 subscribers here on the channel. Anyway, Kiana and his group take the fish, slice it into pieces, and return to the place where they live. There, a few kids were playing inside Kiana's house and came across a robe that belongs to him. That robe is worn by warriors, specifically those who are part of the Maui kingdom. Anyway, one of the kids asks Kiana, saying, "Why?" And what did Kiana say? The kid asked him, "Why did you leave your high position in Maui and come live here?" So Kiana told him that he was extremely tired of war and just wanted to live in peace, which is why he left Maui and came to live here. After that, his wife Kapoi comes to him and says, "What's this? I can see you treat kids well. How about we have a child?" Then she goes, "Actually, you know what? We're going to have a child. I'm not going to wait for your approval." And it's clear that Kapoi really wants to start a family with Kiana. At that moment, envoys from the kingdom of Maui arrive, sent personally by the king. For whom? For Kiana. They told him, "Listen, the king wants you right now." And they also said, "You've been here for 3 seasons, Kiana. That's more than enough." Kiana told them, "I'll come with you only because the king wants me, but don't expect anything else." Kiana takes his family and goes with the envoys to the kingdom of Maui. There, he finds the king's son waiting for him. The king's son, named Kupali, is absolutely obsessed with Kiana. He sees him like an older brother. He told him, "Wow, remember the old days, Kiana? Back when you commanded the army, no kingdom could stand against us in battle." Kiana said to Kupali, "Don't get any ideas or think you can bring me back into the army. I'm not planning to return to any of that. I'm living my life freely now." While they were on their way to meet the king, they passed by an area where Maui's army was training. There was a guy among them who threw spears with such precision that not even a fly could escape. He could pin it with a spear. Anyway, the king's advisor, who, by the way, absolutely hates Kiana, decided to give him a fake warm welcome and try to embarrass him. He said, "Hey Kiana, why don't you show us a glimpse of your glory days?" and made him challenge that guy with the spears. Kiana immediately accepted the challenge without hesitation. The guy started throwing spears at Kiana, but not a single one hit him. On top of that, Kiana was catching the spears with his hands and stabbing them into the ground as he ran toward the guy until he reached him, grabbed him, broke both his arms, and then quickly gave him 2 or 3 slashes in the back. After that, like nothing happened, he casually went to greet the king. The king, whose name is Kaikili, welcomed him respectfully and also greeted Kiana's companions, whose names are Nahi and Namake. Kiana then sits with the king and asks him, "What's the story, your majesty?" The king tells him that he needs his help to defend his city. Kiana told him he wasn't interested and turned to leave, but the king said, "Wait, be careful. The prophecy has started to come true. And I want to tell you something, Kiana. You are the chosen one. Why? Because you're incredibly skilled in war, yet you hate war. And most people love you deeply. So basically, my friend, you're the one. You're the one who can unite the 4 kingdoms under your name." He added, "Besides, we've heard rumors that the kingdom of Oahu is planning to attack us." Kiana replied, "The king of Oahu isn't even a man of war. He's still a young guy." But Kaikili said, "This isn't coming from the king. It's the high priest behind it all. That man hates us and wants to wipe us out in any way possible. So please, Kiana, help us." Kiana said, "All right, let me think it over." And he walked away. Kiana went back to his people and told them everything the king had said. He told them, "Honestly, I'm not buying any of this." But his group seemed very convinced by the king's words, especially Kiana's wife, who clearly liked the idea of her husband being the chosen one. Still, Kiana didn't take it to heart. He kept thinking about it rationally, weighing it in his mind. The next morning, the king came to visit him personally and took him out for a walk to talk. As they walked, the king told Kiana, "This war is going to happen. No doubt, it might even be the war that unites our kingdoms." And Kiana, you need to be part of it because you're the best man alive when it comes to leading battles. Then he took him to a hut that had something strange inside. Kiana asked, "What's inside this hut, if you don't mind me asking?" The king said, "It's your father's remains." You see, Kiana, the high priest of Oahu was trying to get to your father's remains so he could desecrate them. But thankfully, we managed to recover them before he got to them. Take them, Kiana, and give your father a proper burial. At that moment, Kiana felt really touched by what the king did. He took his father's remains and brought them back to his people. And just like that, he threw them into the fire. And then they all start crying and mourning as if he had just died, and that night passes. The next day, Kiana is standing on the shore when a prophetess named Taula approaches him. She's known for predicting future events, or at least parts of them. Kiana asks her, "Give me advice. Should I go to this war or not?" Taula tells him, "Hold your father's hands." Kiana replies, "What do you mean? Hold my father's hands? I don't get it. I just burned him yesterday." She says, "You'll understand it on your own," and then suddenly vanishes. So Kiana goes back to his people, and there, his wife comes to speak with him. Kiana tells her what Taula said, but admits he doesn't understand any of it. At that moment, Kupoi says, "Now I get it. Here, take this weapon. It belonged to your father. The warriors of Maui just brought it to me a little while ago. And since your father always held this weapon in his hands, Taula probably meant that you should hold it in his place, which means you need to take part in this war." That explanation spins Kiana's mind around, and he finally agrees to join the war alongside the king of Maui. He prepares himself, puts on his war robe again, and that strange, weird, intimidating helmet. Then he goes to meet King Kahekili. Kiana says, "Now listen carefully and open your ears wide. I want you to take your army to the shores of Ohio, but don't attack. Just hold your position. That way, the city of Oahu will send out their army to defend it. At that moment, I'll enter from the east side and make my way to the temple. I'll grab their high priest and crush him and snap his neck. After that, I'll secure the young king. Then you can enter the city." Kahekili says, "Sounds perfect. Let's go." So Kiana and his group say goodbye to Hiki, since she's not a warrior, and they leave her behind in Maui. As for the rest, they all go with Kiana, even his wife, because she's a warrior. Kiana enters from the eastern side of Oahu, where he finds some warriors waiting for him. They try to resist him, but Kiana takes them all down and flattens them. And while the battle is still going on, Kiana spots Taula among the people, but this time she's dressed in all black. Her eyes are black too, and her face shows clear fear and sorrow. Then she suddenly vanishes into thin air. Kiana immediately feels that something is wrong, so he warns his people and tells them, "Open your eyes, something's not right." They keep moving forward, and they run into another group trying to block their way. But it turns out these people are just farmers, not warriors. So Kiana refuses to harm them. At that exact moment, he hears the sound of Maui's war horn giving the command to attack the city. Kiana gets upset because he had told the king not to move from his position. But the king went ahead and entered the city anyway, and he does something very strange. He starts killing everyone in his path, old or young, anyone at all. He wipes them all out. Kupoli, his son, is in total shock at what his father is doing. His face clearly shows that he had no idea this was going to happen. His father had kept his true intentions hidden from him. And not only that, Kahekili then storms into the city's temple and also kills everyone inside before setting the temple on fire. By the time Kiana arrives, Kahekili has already killed everyone. When Kiana sees the scene of all the corpses, he's deeply disturbed. And he's even more upset when he sees the king holding the young king of the city and killing him in cold blood. Kiana confronts him and says, "This isn't what we agreed on. You lied to me." Kahekili responds, "Listen, I'm forcing the prophecy to happen. It won't happen on its own, so I'm making it happen myself. I plan to invade all the kingdoms and bring them under my name. And then peace will finally come, God willing." Kiana doesn't like what he hears at all. He's furious and walks away from the king. At that moment, Kupali runs after him and tells him, "I swear I didn't know anything about what my father was planning." Kiana tells him, "Whether you knew or not, the blood of these people is on your father's hands, and yours too. It's on all of us, because we helped him." And then he walks away from him too. So at that moment, Kupoli told his father's advisor, "Keep an eye on Kiana, and if you see him about to do anything suspicious, come tell me. Don't act on your own. Don't do anything." Now we cut back to Maui, specifically to a hidden cave in a remote area that no one knows about. There's a girl there named Kahumanu. Her mother? She's the sister of King Kahekili, but Kahekili has no idea that Kahumanu even exists, because this girl is the daughter of the former chief of the Kingdom of Ohio, or rather the one who used to rule Ohio. That chief is now dead, and a new leader has taken his place. Anyway, the man who raised her comes to her and tells her that her uncle Kahekili did what he did in Oahu, so her presence here is now dangerous, and she needs to be taken away to Ohio. He also tells her he's planning to marry her off to the new chief of Ohio. And keep in mind, Ohio is the sworn enemy of Maui, But Kahumanu isn't okay with any of this. She doesn't want to marry someone she's never even seen. She's extremely upset and leaves to be alone for a while. Back in Oahu, Kupoli storms in to confront his father and says, "What did you just do? Why didn't you tell me your plan from the beginning? Dad, what you did was wrong. You wiped out innocent people. We had no issues with them. Now you've created conflict, and the other kingdoms are definitely going to turn against us." His father says, "Don't worry, kid. I already told you. I have a plan, and I'm going to carry it out." He then tells his son to send 2 men to bring Kiana to him because he wants to speak with him. The 2 men go to Kiana and take him away from his people to bring him to the king. But when the king arrives at the meeting place, he doesn't find Kiana. He only finds the 2 men lying dead. Kiana had already taken them out. The king gets furious and says to his son, "Listen, I want Kiana alive. There's some bone or something he's supposed to grind or sniff or rub. I'm not really sure, man. These tribal folks have all kinds of weird stuff going on, dear viewer." But it turns out that Kiana had already taken a boat, gathered his people, and escaped, heading back to Maui. But the cunning royal advisor, who also happens to be the king's brother, already knew Kiana would try something like that, so he immediately had the boats prepared to chase after him. Kiana and his people were paddling fast in their canoe, trying to reach Maui. While they were rowing, they suddenly heard the sound of a bell ringing. They asked each other, "What's that sound?" And Kiana replied, "I don't know," because none of them actually knew what a bell even sounded like. Anyway, they didn't think much of it and just kept going until they finally arrived in Maui. Once they landed, they started calling out for Heike, but she didn't respond. Kiana said, "Listen, you all go look for her. I'll distract the king's men," because by that time, the king's men had already caught up with them. As Kiana was walking around all cool and confident, one of the king's men suddenly appeared in front of him. So Kiana immediately took him down with incredible force and speed. But right before the guy died, he let out a loud scream, which alerted the rest of the king's men. They all started chasing after Kiana, but suddenly he vanished, like he'd evaporated into thin air. So the king's men were forced to split into 2 groups to set up an ambush for him. Meanwhile, back on the shores of the kingdom of Maui, some boats were approaching, carrying a group of merchants. It turns out these merchants had a large ship, and that's where the bell sound Kiana and his group heard had come from. But they never saw the ship. The merchants had come to the island to collect some fruit because they were starving and had no food left. Their captain gathered them all, pointed their rifles, and said, "Listen, we're not here to get into a fight with the locals. We don't want to end up like Captain Jack. We're just going to grab some fruit and get out." Then we cut to Kahumanu. Her mother comes to her in the cave where she's staying and gives her some oil to put in her hair to clean it of lice and freshen her up for her new groom, and then leaves. But Kahumanu was deeply upset, so she went out for a walk along the shore. Suddenly, Taula appeared to her. Kahumanu said, "I'm really upset, and I don't want to get married like this." Taula replied, "There's only one path to happiness in front of you." Kahumanu quickly said, "Please, take me there. I'm begging you." But Taula said, "You can't walk that path alone. Someone will come to you. That person will help you walk it. He'll come to you wherever you are." Suddenly, Taula was overcome with fear. Kahumanu asked, "What's wrong? What happened?" Taula answered, "The gods are terrified." Kahumanu was shocked. "What? The gods are terrified? Of who exactly?" Taula said, "They're afraid of you because you, Kahumanu, are going to do something that will shatter the entire world." Meanwhile, Kiana's group finally finds Hiki, and she's completely fine. They quickly tell her everything that happened and say they'll wait right there until Kiana returns. On the other side, Kiana is still being chased by the king's men, and the king's advisor hits him in the head with a rock, throwing off his balance. Still, using his cleverness, skill, and experience, Kiana manages to escape and slips into a cave right by the shore. Inside the cave, there's water, so Kiana drinks and even rinses himself off a bit. Turns out, that cave belongs to none other than Kahumanu. She arrives and sees him, and she tries to help him, but Kiana tells her, "Don't help me. If the king's men find out you helped me, they'll kill you." But Kahumanu says, "Don't worry, I've been running from the king's men my entire life anyway." Then she tends to his wounds, gives him first aid, and Kiana starts to feel better. She then asks him, "Why are the king's men chasing you?" Kiana tells her everything, including how he came back here just to get Hiki and leave. Then he notices something. She has an old pistol. Kiana asks, "What's that? What's that strange device you have?" Kahumanu told him, "That's a weapon. It belonged to a guy named Captain Jack who came here years ago and tried to invade the kingdom of Ohio. But the people of the kingdom managed to fight him and his men off, even though they had very advanced weapons. But you know how it is, Kiana. Numbers beat bravery in the end." Then she said, "Listen, since you're trying to escape from here, I've got a boat that's heading to Ohio. What do you think about you and your people coming with me?" Kiana said, "Sounds perfect. Let's go. On the other side, the merchants in the forest were picking fruit from the trees, but one of them had stepped off to the side to pee. Just as he finished, one of the king's men came out of nowhere and hit him over the head, knocking him out cold. At that same moment, Kiana and Kahumanu spot the merchants in the forest. One of the merchants raises his weapon at Kiana, ready to shoot. Kiana, unaware of what that weapon really is, pulls out his knife, thinking he can take him out easily. He shouts, "How dare you point your stick at me?" Of course, not realizing it's a gun. Thankfully, the merchant leader quickly steps in and orders his man to lower the rifle. At that moment, Kiana throws his knife and takes out one of the king's men. Then he grabs Kahumanu and walks away calmly through the crowd. When he senses the king's men getting too close, he takes off his fang necklace and hands it to Kahumanu, telling her, "Give this to my wife, so they know you're coming from me. Go ahead, take them and leave. I'll stay back and distract the king's men and buy you some time." Meanwhile, all the merchants hurry to their boats, trying to leave the kingdom before they get caught up in any trouble. Kahumanu makes it to Kiana's group and gives the necklace to Kupoi. Then she takes everyone to her boat so they can leave together. As they're getting the boat ready, the merchant who had been knocked out earlier shows up and says, "Please, let me come with you and help me get back to my ship." So Kahumanu takes him with her. On the other side, while Kiana is running from the king's men, he ends up cornered with nowhere to go, which forces him to face them head on. At first, he easily takes down a good number of them like it's nothing. But then, more warriors show up and eventually overpower him. They capture Kiana and hold him down. Then, the king's advisor shows up, ready to finish him off. But in a totally unexpected move, Kiana grabs the advisor and jumps with him off the ledge, and the two of them plunge into the water together. All of this happens right in front of Kuboli's eyes. So he simply turns to his men and says, "All right, you two, jump in the water and bring me Kiana's body." But a little while later, Kiana wakes up and finds himself where? On the merchant's ship. Turns out, the merchants rescued him from the water and brought him aboard because he had saved them earlier from that royal soldier. But Kiana is in a wild, furious, and shaken state, and they're all trying to calm him down. They even say, "Here, take your weapons, relax, we're the ones who saved you." Kiana finally calms down, and as he looks out from the deck, he sees the ship sailing farther and farther away from the island of Maui. And that's where episode 2 ends. Episode 3 starts 1 year after the events of episode 2. We find Kiana, thank God, finally wearing clothes and sparing us from his backside muscles that were bothering us the whole time. Tony, the guy on the ship, was teaching him the English language and also teaching him how to use the rifle. He made him memorize every detail of the rifle and also taught him how to aim. And that's because Tony loves Kiana so much. You don't really understand why. Maybe he just has a kind heart. They took Kiana with them on their trade journey and passed through Alaska, and there Kiana hunted deer with the rifle, so the man actually practiced on it. On the other side in Oahu, his wife Kupohe didn't know what his fate was. She was almost sure that Kiana had already passed away. Then we go to Oahu, where the crazy King Kahekili was. There was some resistance there. Some people tried to poison him because of what he did, but Kahekili and his council were very alert, so they captured those people and poisoned them with their own poison. We go back again to Hawaii, specifically to a district called Kohala, because Hawaii is divided into districts. One of them is led by a chief named Kamehameha. Yes, believe me, just like I'm telling you, Kamehameha. Anyway, Mr. Kamehameha was challenging the men in his district. Each one of them was holding a stone to weigh themselves down, and they were standing at the bottom of the sea, competing to see who could hold their breath the longest. And of course, needless to say, Kamehameha was the last one to stay underwater. Not only that, but he didn't just come up. He swam back to the shore, still holding the stone. And that's because Kamehameha is really strong. Or maybe, the men of the land were just flattering him and afraid of him, and no one wanted to beat him in case it backfired on them. Anyway, when he comes up to the shore, Kahumanu's father comes to him and says, "Hey man, why are you leaving the leadership of your district like this and playing around at the sea here?" Kamehameha told him that the leadership council is a council of words, not actions, but he is a man who loves action, not just talk. So Kahumanu's father told him that the king of Hawaii, who also happens to be Kamehameha's uncle, his health is deteriorating and he is on his deathbed, and he asked for Kamehameha in an urgent meeting. Kamehameha wears his war attire and goes to the king. There, the king was present along with his son Kiwoa. Some names in this series, dear viewer, only God knows them. My tongue is twisting here. And if this is your first time watching us, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let me know your impression about the series. Anyway, the king began his speech by mentioning Captain Cook and said that he was a great leader. Captain Cook was the one who had come before and attacked them, and they defeated him. But as we said, they lost so many people back then because Captain Cook came with pistols and rifles while they were fighting with spears. The important thing is, whenever the king spoke well about Captain Cook and his men, Kiwoa would interrupt him and speak badly of them because he couldn't stand them and was very upset about what they did to them. Yet it was clear from the king that he highly respected his opponents or his enemies. Anyway, after that, they brought up King Kahekili, and the king said that surely he is planning to come after them to occupy Hawaii. And he asked Kamehameha what preparations they should be making during this time. At that moment, Kiwoa jumped into the conversation and said, "We prepare spears and prepare weapons, and the most important thing is to have pure intentions, and God willing, we'll be able to face Kahekili and his army." So the king told him, "Can you shut up? I want to hear Kamehameha." Kamehameha told him that in their last siege, years ago, their warriors were defeated because of the lack of food. There was no food in their storerooms during the siege, so the warriors starved and couldn't find anything to eat. At that time, they were forced to eat some kinds of grass that caused them diarrhea, and then they lost the war. What kind of ridiculous loss is this, dear viewer? Imagine someone in the tribe asks his grandfather, "Grandpa, how did you lose the war?" And he replies, "I got diarrhea." Anyway, Kamehameha told the king that they should fill their storerooms with grain and food. Kiwoa jumped into the conversation and told him that this would take at least 9 months. Kamehameha said that he had already started with that, and now all the storerooms were already full of grain and food, meaning that the man had been prepared for months. At that moment, the king was very impressed with Kamehameha and his strategic mind. As for Kiwoa, it was very clear on his face that he wasn't pleased with what had happened and was jealous of Kamehameha. We then moved to Kahumanu and Jack, the one they rescued at the end of the second episode. We learned that they took Jack with them, and he stayed with them in their tribe, and they hosted him. Anyway, Jack was teaching the children of the town and Kahumanu the English language, and many people in the town learned English. At that time, Kahumanu's father, whose name is Moku, came in. He looked at Jack and told him, "Get out of here now." Then he told Kahumanu, "Get yourself ready because you are going to marry Kamehameha." Kahumanu told him, "You again? Why are you in such a hurry?" He told her, "In a hurry? We've been here for a year. What kind of marriage is this that takes a year to prepare? Come on now, try to get ready quickly so the wedding can happen soon." We then move to the ship where Kiana is. On the ship, there is a man named Marley. Marley really hates Kiana and also hates Tony. He even hates himself, dear viewer. This person is a very evil man. He was muttering and saying, "Why did the captain save Kiana?" So Tony told him, "Because Kiana saved the captain before, so the man is just returning the favor. You are a dishonorable man." Marley told Tony, "Don't forget yourself and don't forget your place. Just because we are on the same ship doesn't mean that we are equals. Look at yourself and remember everything." And here, of course, Marley meant that he was his slave and so on. So Tony took those words and then went to Kiana. He looked at him and found that he had surrounded himself with weapons. So Tony told him, "Man, aren't you hanging out with anyone on this ship except for these weapons of yours?" Kiana told him that he wanted a lot more weapons. Tony told him, "Then you're going to need a lot of money, and you're already borrowing from me the pants you're wearing, Kiana." He then told him, "Anyway, after this, we're heading to a coastal city called Zamboanga. This city is an Indian city that the Spanish occupied, and it has everything you want, Kiana. But your problem, like I told you, is money." We go back again to Kahumanu. She tells her father, "Why are you pushing me into this marriage?" Her father told her, "Look, my daughter, to put it plainly, I feel like Kamehameha is the promised king that the prophecy spoke of." Huh, wasn't it Kiana who seemed to be the promised king, dear viewer? Anyway, Kahumanu asked him, "How are you so sure that he is the promised king?" Her father told her, "On the night of Kamehameha's birth, the prophetic star burned in the sky, and that was the sign of the promised king. From that time, Kahumanu, my daughter, I was certain that he was the promised king. But unfortunately, until now, he's still hesitant and unsure about anything in his life. So your role, Kahumanu, is to make him reach certainty, and that's why I want you to marry him." Then he left her and went away. Kahumanu then went to Kobohi, and she found her sitting in the middle of the forest, venting her anger on the trees. Kumanu asked her, "How are you doing?" Kobohi asked her, "How are you doing? I heard that you're going into a marriage that you don't even want in the first place." Kahumanu stayed silent and didn't respond. We go back again to Kiana. They had reached the Indian city. There, when they got off to enter the Indian city, Kiana wore his official outfit as a form of pride for the place he belonged to. Anyway, Kiana went down and walked around the city, and he saw with his own eyes everything new. the people's clothing, the people themselves, and the differences in races and appearances. But the thing that caught Kiana's attention the most was the weapons. He was very interested in them. So Tony took him and entered him into a weapon shop to let him look at the newest weapons that had just arrived on the market. And then Kiana went and talked to the shop owner. He told him, "Hey, listen, I want all the weapons you have." The shop owner told him, "No problem, your money please?" So Kiana pulled out 3 shillings, or maybe 3 dinars, and gave them to him. Of course, at that moment the man burst out laughing, and Tony took Kiana and walked him out. He told him, "Man, like I told you, you need a lot of money, and you don't have anything. You don't even have more than half the boxer shorts you're wearing, Kiana." While they were walking through the streets of the city, a woman spotted Kiana, and it seemed like she knew him. So she went up to him, spoke to him, and took him away to a place away from people. She talked to him and offered him help, telling him that she could get him anything he wanted. Kiana asked her, "Who are you, and why are you helping me?" She told him that her name was Phi, and that she was also from the islands where he came from. In other words, she was from his homeland, but she had been in that place for many, many years and wanted to return to her islands. As for how she got from her islands to this place, she didn't say. Anyway, she told Kiana that she was ready to get him all the weapons he wanted, but she asked him why he wanted them in the first place. Kiana told her that he had made a mistake and wanted to fix it. She told him, "Fine, no problem. I'll help you, but you're also going to help me." So Tony took Kiana and Phi and went to their captain. There, Phi spoke to the captain and told him, "Hey, listen, I'm going to offer you the deal of your life. You're going to buy the weapons that Kiana needs with your money." The captain told her, "What? Do you think this is easy? First of all, this is going to cost a lot of money. Second, in order to get them out of here, we're going to need a lot of permits." Phi told him, "Don't worry about that part. I'll handle it. As for the money, you'll get back multiples upon multiples of it." The captain asked her, "How?" Phi told him that their islands were rich with a type of wood called pine wood. That wood was extremely rare, so rare that a single piece of it could be sold for 5 times its regular value. She told him, "And let me tell you, in our islands we have mines of that wood." At that point, Kiana jumped in and told her, "Wait, are you selling out our homeland or what?" Phi told him, "We're doing trade, not selling our homeland. And money, Kiana, money is what speaks. Besides, the one who has more weapons can protect himself better these days. And by the way, this trade will be run by us on our own terms. No one will force us into anything because we'll have our own weapons." Then she turned back to the captain and told him, "Keep in mind, the Spanish still don't know where our islands are. But if they ever find out that our islands hold pine wood, then you won't even have time to react. So you better move fast." So basically, that pitch impressed both Kiana and the captain. After that, Phi took Kiana and walked with him around the city, showing him the native people who were the real owners of that land. The Spanish at the time were crushing them and treating them horribly. She told Kiana, "If the Spanish ever reach our islands, they'll do the exact same thing to our people as they're doing to these ones. So my idea, Kiana, is our lifeline. We need to move fast because it's only a matter of time before our islands are discovered." The next day, that man Marley, the evil one, went and spoke with another captain named Metcalf. He told him about Kiana's islands, saying that they were full of treasures and that the islanders were very primitive people who could easily be taken down with weapons. He struck a deal with Captain Metcalf, promising him a big share of the loot. We then go back to Kahumanu. That day was supposed to be her wedding day, but before the ceremony, she spoke with her father Como and told him, "Listen, the fortune teller told me that I won't be able to have children, and obviously Kamehameha needs heirs. So honestly, I think this marriage is completely pointless." But Como told her, "You're marrying him anyway, and don't you dare mention this issue to him." Then they dressed her in the wedding gown and brought her to Kamehameha. There, they performed the initial wedding rituals. We also learned that this wasn't Kamehameha's first bride. He already had many wives, and Kahumanu would be his last. After the ceremony ended, they took her to Kamehameha's tent. Inside the tent, there was an old woman sitting with Kamehameha. I have no idea why she was there. Was she some sort of wedding night supervisor? I really don't know, dear viewer. Anyway, the night ended. We then cut back to Tony. At this time, Tony had been keeping an eye on Marley, sensing that he was up to something shady. By coincidence, Tony went into their ship and found Marley inside the captain's cabin. Why? Because Marley was trying to steal the maps that led to Kiana's islands. Tony confronted him. "What are you doing here? What's your business with these maps? Why are you taking them?" Marley answered, "The captain told me to get them for him." Tony said, "You liar," and immediately pulled a gun on him. But right then, it turned out Marley had backup. 2 of his men were hiding in the cabin. They grabbed Tony, disarmed him, and beat him up. In the end, they knocked him out cold, planning to sell him into slavery and get rid of him without the captain ever finding out. At the start of episode 4, we're back in Hawaii. The king of Hawaii has passed away. All the tribal chiefs of the kingdom went to the king's son, Kiowa, and knelt before him. Meanwhile, over in Maui, the news of the Hawaiian king's death reached King Kahekili. He said, "What? He died before I could finish him off? That was supposed to be my greatest victory." Then he added, "You know what? Before anyone else from their side dies, we'll gather our army and march on them." But one of Kahekili's advisors stepped in and said, "With all due respect, Your Majesty, this is turning into a massacre. This isn't the prophecy you were speaking of." Because the prophecy said that we were supposed to unite all our forces into one front, not wipe out every king and prince of the other kingdoms. But Kahekili responded, "There are no other kings but me from now on. Every bloodline that comes after this will descend from me. That's final. Now go prepare the army." So they all left to do exactly as Kahekili ordered. But his son, Kupalo, gave him a look, the kind of look that clearly said, "What you're doing has nothing to do with the prophecy. You're just greedy." Still, Kupalo didn't speak a word. He simply obeyed and carried out his father's wishes. Then we cut to Kobohi. There, Namaki, who's supposed to be Kiana's brother, started getting close to her. Not only that, but Kobohi seemed to be responding positively too. Why? Because everyone thought Kiana was dead, so they figured they might as well move on with their lives. But Nahi, who was watching them from a distance while they were playfully whispering in each other's ears, did not like what he saw. His wife, Heiki, told him, "Calm down. Let them live their lives. You know very well that Namaki has loved Kobohi for a long time, and it's been over a year now. Kiana never came back. He must be dead by now." But Nahi argued, "Suppose they do live their lives, and then suddenly, bam, Kiana walks back in one day. What are we going to do then?" "Huh?" Heiki said. "Simple. We'll celebrate his return, that's all." "Oh wow, really, Heiki? Everything's that easy for you? You don't realize that if Kiana even glimpses Maki with his wife like that, he's going to be so furious. It'll be like they're strapped to the exhaust pipe of a motorcycle and dragged around for at least 3 hours straight. Anyway, let's go back to our boy Kiana. I was about to tell you something important, but hold on, we'll get there. For now, Kiana is talking with Phi. She tells him that she's finalized the weapons deal, and tonight, the weapons will be secretly transferred onto the ship. Kiana was looking everywhere for Tony, completely missing. He was nowhere to be found. Phi told him, "I don't know where he is. Forget about him for now, and focus on what's important, okay?" But Kiana couldn't. He was worried sick about Tony, running around the city like a madman searching for him. He even went to ask Marley, who said, "I don't know. Believe me, I saw him last night. He was having fun, drinking, and then, poof, I never saw him again." "Ah, you sly little rat, Marley. I don't trust you one bit." Anyway, Kiana left Marley and continued his desperate search. While walking through the city streets, he suddenly heard crying. He followed the sound and found a huge cage covered with a cloth. He pulled the cloth back, and there they were, dozens of people chained inside, including little children. The slaver who was running the operation showed up and tried to push Kiana away from the cage. But Kiana was already boiling with rage. He grabbed the man and nearly killed him right there. That's when the Spaniards showed up. They chased Kiana through the streets, but he managed to slip away and vanish right under their noses. Meanwhile, back in Hawaii, the coronation ceremony was underway for the new king. They were also announcing the new ministers and distributing positions. One of the attendants read the late king's will. His son, Kiwalao, would be crowned king. And Kamehameha, well, he would be named the God of War, basically the equivalent of Minister of Defense. But Kiwalao didn't like that one bit. He said, "What? The position of Minister of War should be mine. How could my father possibly give that to Kamehameha, that illegitimate child?" He demanded that Kamehameha give up the title, but Kamehameha refused because he knew the truth. Kiwalao wasn't capable. He didn't have the strength to lead an army. At best, he was fit for a ceremonial throne, nothing more. That's when the tension between Kiwalao and Kamehameha really blew up. The man reading the king's will quickly stepped in, warning Kiwalao, "Calm yourself. If the chiefs feel you're opposing your father's last words, they'll withdraw their support." But Kiwalao was wild with rage. He couldn't stand the humiliation of Kamehameha holding the title of Minister of War. To him, it was an insult carved into his pride. Kamehameha, however, didn't waste words. He simply picked up the staff, the symbol of the position, and walked away. The staff was the key. Whoever held it was the official Minister of War. Did Kiwalao just sit quietly? No. He went berserk. He began punching himself in the face until he cracked one of his own teeth. He spat it out before everyone, declaring, "My mourning is over. It was their tradition. Breaking a tooth marked the end of grief." And now, with no more restraints, Kiwalo announced he would act as he saw fit. In other words, he was preparing for war with Kamehameha. A civil war was coming, and that would play straight into King Kahekili's hands. Later, Moku found Kamehameha alone and tried to give him counsel, what to do, what not to do. But Kamehameha wasn't listening. He turned his back and walked away, too heavy with his own thoughts. Unbeknownst to them, Kaahumanu had been watching from a distance. She approached Moku after Kamehameha left, telling him she wanted to talk to Kamehameha herself to help him make the right decision. But Moku waved her off. "Not now. Stay in your place with the other wives." Kaahumanu frowned. "Didn't you tell me before that he needs me to make the right choices in his life?" "Yes," Moku admitted, "but later. Not now." And with that, he walked away. Kaahumanu rolled her eyes, dismissing Moku's advice. She went straight to Kamehameha herself. She sat by him gently and asked, "What's wrong, my love? Why do you carry such heavy burdens? I want you to believe you are the chosen one." Kaahumanu pointed to the great stone before them. "See that rock? Isn't that the sacred stone of Nahi, the one you moved? The prophecy says the one who moves it is the chosen one, and they all say you, Kamehameha, were the one who moved it." Kamehameha shook his head. "Let me tell you the truth. I didn't really move that stone. That day, in front of everyone, when I tried to lift it, the earth shook beneath me, an earthquake, and that's what allowed me to flip it over, but it wasn't my strength. If I tried now, I couldn't move it again." Kaahumanu leaned closer, dismissing his doubts. "Forget about the stone, my love. What matters is you focus your mind and gather your strength. Dark days are ahead," Kamehameha sighed. "But what can I do? Our gods remain silent. They don't answer me. They give no sign. How can I know which path is right?" Kaahumanu looked at him firmly. "Simple. Use wisdom. Act with the judgment you know is right. The gods don't need to speak for the truth. It's right in front of you. Open your eyes, Kamehameha." For the first time, her calm reasoning struck him deeply. He admired her clarity, her courage. Perhaps more than all the priests and advisors, she was the one who could truly guide him. Meanwhile, back on the island of Zamboanga, Spanish soldiers confronted the ship's captain, demanding to know if he had seen a man named Kiana. The captain shrugged. "Never heard of anyone like that. Look, my ship is right here. Search it from top to bottom if you want." The Spaniards exchanged glances. "No need. For now. But hear this. If we find out you've lied, we'll finish you. And that's by law." With that, they left. The captain exhaled heavily, then turned to Faye. "Listen carefully. By tonight, the weapons will be fully loaded on this ship. But if Kiana doesn't show up before then, I'm sailing without him. I risked my neck lying to the Spaniards, and I'm not risking it twice. A man's life is his own, but mine is mine." At that time, we return again to Hawaii, where we find Kamehameha and his tribe performing certain rituals in order to communicate with their gods. However, the gods did not respond, so Kamehameha said to his tribe, "Listen, since the gods are not willing to answer, and we know very well that Kiowa will attack us, we will prepare ourselves for defense. We will not attack, no, but we have every right to defend ourselves." One of the tribe members said to him, "But how can you take such a step without hearing the opinion of the gods?" Kamehameha replied, "The gods are not willing to answer, and I am the chief of the tribe here. I will do what I see as best for the tribe." And that was exactly what Kaahumanu had told Kamehameha. At that moment, Moku felt that Kaahumanu was the one speaking through Kamehameha and realized that Kaahumanu had broken his word. At the same time, on the shore of the island, we find Kapohe going to speak with Namake. She thanked him for standing by her during the past period, for pulling her out of the terrible state she was in, and for being the one who strengthened her and was her source of strength. Namake said to her, "Don't say that. You, Kapohe, are a fierce warrior and capable on your own of everything without anyone's help. No, no, no. What powerful words are these?" Kapohe, of course, after hearing those words, could hardly move from her place. Nevertheless, she managed to stand strong in front of Namake because she still loved Kiana. She handed him her necklace and said, "This is something from me to you. But Namake, my brother, I cannot forget Kiana." Then she left him and walked away. "Oh, well done, Kapohe. Yes, that's how you should be. Strong and loyal." We return again to the Indian island, where Faye, after much searching, manages to find Kiana. Or rather, Kiana was the one who managed to reach her. Anyway, Faye said to him, "Where have you been, man? We need to leave. All the weapons are almost loaded onto the ship." Kiana said to her, "I'm not leaving here without Tony." So Faye told him that Tony had already been sold as a slave. Kiana asked her where he could find him. Faye described to him the place where he might be and told him, "Don't be late. Come back quickly. The ship will leave without you." Kiana left her and went to that place she had told him about, sneaking around so no one would see him until he reached the cells where the people were imprisoned. There, he started opening the cells and calling out for Tony. After opening almost all of them and taking down a few guards along the way, he finally found Tony. Kiana immediately grabbed him, supported him, and led him out of that place, sneaking carefully to reach the ship. But while they were on their way, Marley spotted them. He didn't clash with them, though. On the contrary, he was afraid of Kiana and ran away. Anyway, Kiana reached the boat that would take him to the ship, and indeed they made it safely aboard. By then, all the weapons had been loaded, and the captain immediately gave the order to set sail. At that moment, Kiana was staring at the city, saddened that he couldn't free all the slaves trapped there. Yet at the same time, he was pleased, knowing he had left his mark on those who ruled it. We return again to Hawaii, where we see Namaki coming back at the end of the day and entering his hut. He was surprised to find Kapohe waiting for him inside. I was hoping she had come back just to take her necklace again. But wait, what's this? Turns out Kapohe gave in and surrendered herself to Namake. So please, let's drop the words loyal and strong for Kapohe and replace them with impulsive and not trustworthy. And with that, episode 4 comes to an end. At the beginning of episode 5, we see Master Kamehameha gathering the children of the tribe and giving them a lesson about planting taro. You might ask, why taro? I'd say because I love it, but also because he really was talking about taro. Kamehameha used it as a metaphor between farming and their tribe, meaning that the roots are like the fathers and grandfathers, and the plants that grow from those roots are like the children, and without their roots, they have no value. So they must care for their homeland and their land as well, and help build their tribe. Then he tells them, go work the land. Next, we move to Kiowa, who is sitting somewhere on volcanic rocks with a fortune teller, sharing his troubles. He tells her, my father didn't give me the position of Minister of Defense. He gave it to Kamehameha. My father pushed my head into the dirt. Oh, fortune teller, she replies, don't worry. My son, this is a trial and you must be patient. You will surely come out victorious. Then she recites some prayers, and suddenly hot steam rises around Kiowa to the point it burns his back, but he takes it all as strength, entering his body. After that, we go to the ship where Kiana is. As usual, he's sitting there organizing his weapons, cleaning and sharpening them, lining them up and making sure they're ready for action at any moment. He also has Tony working with him. What's up with that, Kiana? You freed him just to make him your servant? Anyway, Tony is extremely grateful to Kiana for freeing him from slavery. He says, I'll never forget this favor for the rest of my life, Kiana. Truly, I'll never forget it. Kiana laughs, leaves him, and goes up to the top of the ship to talk for a bit with Phi. And he asked her, didn't you once tell me you had relatives on our islands? Phi answered yes, then explained that long ago, when she left the islands, she had abandoned her infant son, who was still just a baby, and that this was the one thing she regretted most in her entire life. Oh, so you left your child behind. Could it really be that Kiana is your son after all? But Phi was clearly heartbroken and longed to see her boy again. We then shift to Kobohi and Namaki, who were spending their time in love and romance, enjoying life to the fullest. A few hours later, Kiana's ship finally reaches the islands, and the first to spot them is John. The moment Kiana sets foot on the island's sand, he kneels down, grabs the sand with his hands, and looks overjoyed. At that very moment, Kobohi and Namaki were still exchanging playful glances, but suddenly the news reached them that Kiana had returned. Those playful looks quickly turned into expressions of fear. Meanwhile, on the other side, Moku comes to meet Kiana and says, what? You're Kiana? Weren't you the one who helped Kahekili conquer Oahu? What are you doing here? Kiana replies, you're right. I did help Kahekili, but I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm here to help you and make amends for my sin. Moku, speaking with arrogance and pride, says, that's something Kamehameha will decide, not me. As for the men who came with you on this ship, they need to return to their vessel and stay there. None of them will set foot on our land. And as for Phi, the woman with you, she left our islands long ago, and we must hold a council to decide her fate. Kiana agrees, and then turns back to the captain and his men, telling them, sorry, my friends, return to the ship for now until I resolve this matter with the chief of the tribe. At that moment, the men said, all right, and then Kobohi came in. As soon as Kiana saw her, he was overjoyed, ran to her, and hugged her tightly, then embraced her sister as well, and even her sister's husband, who happened to be his own brother. Meanwhile, Namaki quickly took off the necklace he had taken from Kobohi, because if Kiana had seen it on his neck, he would have cut his head off without hesitation. Namaki rushed over and hugged him too. At the same time, on the other side, Jack went over to greet the ship's crew, and they couldn't believe he was still alive. They thought he had already perished. They invited him back to the ship, but Jack told them no. His presence here was better for everyone, and he sent them back to the ship, while he stayed behind. Then Nahi started talking with Kiana, asking, "Man, why are you wearing pants covering your thighs like those pale-skinned people?" "No way, Kiana. Here in the tribe, a real man has to show his thighs whenever he walks. And that other part too, you know what I mean," Kiana replied. "That's just how they dress in the West. They say it's something called modesty. I don't know. Nahi, brother, I don't get this strange talk of theirs." Then Kiana gathered all the children of the tribe, poured a bit of gunpowder on his hands, and lit it up in front of them. To them, this was like a miracle, and they thought Kiana was some kind of sorcerer. Anyway, after that, Kiana spoke with Namaki and Nahi, asking them about Kamehameha. They told him he was a very good man, that he deeply cared about his people. But Kiana told them that wasn't enough. Kamehameha needed to be shrewd and strategic because the challenges ahead wouldn't be easy. He also told them they hadn't come here just to live among them, but to prepare for war, and that the war he was about to wage, no one would be able to stand against it. Immediately after, he took them to the council where Kamehameha was supposed to be. There, he was confronted by Komo, who for the second time spoke to him disrespectfully. Komo said, "Kamehameha is not here, and you have no place in our council. You'd better get out of my sight because you're wasting my time." It's worth noting that Komo had no idea that Kiana could easily pull out a gun, shoot him, and end him right there. But Kiana remained patient and humble. Anyway, Kiana kept his composure and walked away, while Kahumanu was standing there watching everything, noticing how Komo was acting arrogantly for no reason. We leave them and go to Phi, who had gone to a place where some children and a man were gathered. Phi focused on that man, then on a particular boy, and the moment that boy saw her, he froze and stared at her too. Eventually he went back to where his siblings and wife were, and while he was talking with his wife, Namaki quietly slipped away. Kiana asked him, "Where are you going?" Namaki replied, "I'm going to burn incense and offer a sacrifice to celebrate your return, my brother." At that moment, Kobohi was very anxious, and just as Kiana was about to take her into the tent, John came up and told him that Kahumanu had sent for him. So Kiana went to meet Kahumanu. She chatted with him and said, "Since you've seen the world, can you tell me what you've witnessed?" Kiana answered, "There are many wonderful things, so many different peoples and races, but there's also a great deal of evil. People killing people with modern weapons, invading any land that holds wealth, taking its resources and leaving behind only destruction, wounded and dead. And that is exactly what will happen to us soon if we don't unite and face this evil together." Hearing this, Kahumanu secretly took Kiana to Kamehameha behind Moku's back. At that time, Master Kamehameha was planting taro, and when Kiana saw him like that, he said, "Wait, this is the chief of the tribe? Give me 10 seconds, and I'll grab some cilantro and meat, and we'll cook up a meal." Just joking, of course. Kahumanu then left them alone, and Kamehameha began speaking with Kiana. From their conversation, you could tell the two of them clicked instantly. They developed a natural chemistry. Kamehameha was deeply impressed by Kiana's mind full of strategies, because Kamehameha himself was also a brilliant strategist. So he told Kiana, "Listen, we're going to put you through a challenge we have here. If you win, it means our gods want you to be part of our council. But if you lose, well, no offense, but you'll have to bring us that cilantro and meat instead." Again, joking with him. On the other side, Kiowa gathered his council and all the tribal chiefs, trying hard to turn them all against Kamehameha. After many attempts and long arguments, insisting that he was supposed to be the Minister of Defense, the chiefs still stood by the decision of Kiowa's father. They firmly believed Kamehameha was far more suitable for the position. They told him plainly, "Kiowa, Kamehameha is much more fit for this role than you, and we will not make any move against him. We don't want a civil war." But of course, Kiowa didn't like what he heard, because deep inside he was consumed with jealousy and hatred toward Kamehameha. Still, he stayed silent and didn't speak further. Meanwhile, Kiana finally returned to Kobohi, and at last took her into the tent. At the same time, Namaki was sitting by the shore, pouring out his troubles to the sea. The next morning, Kiana took his siblings and went to Kamehameha to learn what the challenge was all about. It turned out to be a test where each participant grabbed something like a sled and had to ride it down a very steep slope, with the winner being the first to reach the water safely. The people of the tribe kept saying no one had ever beaten Kamehameha in this challenge before. On top of that, it was Kiana's very first time attempting it. Each man picked his sled and stood at the top of the slope, waiting for the man with the whistle to give the signal. The moment he blew, they all leapt down with their sleds. The sleds were made of wood, and the ground beneath was covered in gravel, making it extremely dangerous. Sure enough, what we expected happened. One of the four had his sled break apart and was thrown to the side. Shortly after, the same thing happened to another. That left only Kiana and Kamehameha. But Kiana, clever and sharp, had been closely observing the two whose sleds broke, watching their mistakes carefully so as not to repeat them. At the same time, he studied Kamehameha's moves, imitating his techniques step by step. Kamehameha was truly surprised by Kiana's endurance, and then came the big twist. Kiana actually beat Kamehameha by the smallest margin, hitting the water just before him. Kamehameha said, "Man, you're reckless. You weren't even paying attention to the rocks or the slopes. You just charged straight through without fear. And that's probably why you won today, because you're not afraid, Kiana." Then he added, "Welcome, warrior, to our council." Later that same day, Kiana took Moku onto the ship he had arrived with and told him, "If Kamehameha is really the one who was prophesied, like you say, he's still going to need my help." Then he showed him the weapons he had brought along and said, "Look at this, Moku. See this rifle? It has the power to rip out your tongue in an instant. And I've got plenty of them." In that moment, Moku realized the immense power Kiana had in his hands. That very night, we see four figures sneaking through the darkness, heading straight for the storage houses where Kamehameha kept his food supplies. They set the stores ablaze, and it turns out those men were none other than Kiowa and some of his soldiers. The next morning, everyone was searching to figure out what had happened. Nobody knew who set the fire, but Kiana knew exactly, and he told them it had to be Kiowa. Kamehameha was standing there and said, "I can't go to war with my cousin." Kiana advised them, "King Kahekili could attack us at any time. Before that happens, we need to unite all the islands, which means we have to finish off Kiowa and go to war with him." But his wife Kobohi was present and said, "We won't do that. There could be another solution. We'll talk to him. Kiowa has been my friend since childhood, and I'm sure he'll listen to me. I'll go speak to him myself to try and make peace between Kamehameha and Kiowa." Kiana answered, "Fine, I'll come with you." Kamehameha turned to his wife Kahumanu and asked her opinion. She said, "Kobohi is right. We should try peace first." Everyone agreed to the plan. Meanwhile, deep inside Hawaii, in the Kau Desert, we saw Kiowa sitting by a fire. The fortune teller came to him, and he demanded his father's crown. He told her, "This crown only chains me." Then he threw his father's crown into the fire and burned it, saying, "From now on, I'll work for myself, no matter the cost." On the other side, in the kingdom of Oahu, Kakili was also sitting by a fire. His men brought him fish, and a priest performed rituals to grant him strength, preparing him a special drink. When Kakili drank it, he saw faint visions of the future. His son, Kupoli, was in the forest with his friend. The friend asked him, "Why is your father so determined to wipe out the royal bloodlines?" Kupoli replied, "Even I don't know." His friend answered, "Your father has lost his way. I believe you should be king. You have strength, wisdom, and the people's trust. Your father's support in Maui and Oahu is collapsing, and those who still love him are few. Everyone wants you." But Kupoli refused. His friend said, "Send me to Maui. I'll finish your father and I'll place all the inheritance at your feet." Still, Kupoli refused. In Kohala, Hawaii, we saw Nahi training. His wife Heki came to him and said, "I also want to learn to fight. Can you teach me?" Nahi agreed and began teaching her combat. She also told him, since Kiana returned, Kobohi has changed. She's been so quiet. Nahi said he knew nothing about it. Meanwhile, Kiana was elsewhere, cleaning and working on his rifles. Suddenly, Kobohi entered and told him, "You spend all day with these weapons. Now you even dress in full clothes like strangers do." But Kiana didn't answer her and walked away. At the same time, large amounts of rifles were being unloaded from the ship and stacked on the shore. Moku was there and told Kiana, "Tell your men to stockpile plenty of food because the time for war has come." The ship's captain was also there and asked Kiana, "How's your sandalwood trade going?" Kiana replied, "Be patient. Everything will go well soon." The captain told him, "Take care of yourself in the war, Kiana. You must live." Kiana answered, "Don't worry, nothing will happen to me." Meanwhile, Kupoli went to speak with his father Kahekili and said, "Maui used to be the greatest kingdom, and the people had faith. But little by little, you've been destroying the other royal families, and I hate it. We can't disgrace the name of our kingdom." His father replied, "You're right. It's our responsibility to keep Maui safe." Then he showed him two men hanging there and said, "These men tried to kill me. That's why I'll keep them alive until they die in agony. And you yourself said Maui's safety is most important. To protect it, we must erase traitors like these." After that, he left. One of the prisoners hanging there said to Kupoli, "Your father is too cruel." Kupoli pulled out a knife and ended the man's suffering. Later, Kiana approached Kahumanu, who was standing and looking at the ship, and said, "I want to talk to you." She sat him down, and he told her, "This morning you said we should talk to Kiowa and give peace a chance, but I don't agree with that. Not from you, and not from my wife. What we need is bloody war so Kiowa learns his lesson. Talking to him would be the greatest mistake we could make." Kahumanu answered, "Try to speak to him just once. If not for the people, then for me." So Kiana set out with his wife toward the Ka'u desert to meet Kiowa and talk with him. When they neared the Black Desert, Kiowa's men surrounded them. Kahumanu called out, "Go tell Kiowa his cousin has come to speak with him." One man ran to fetch him, and Kiowa came. He said to his cousin, "It's been a long time since you visited." She replied, "I came to talk with you," and she pulled out a white stone, saying, "I came with an offer of peace. Let what's between you and Kamehameha be settled so we can sit and negotiate." Kiowa said, "If Kamehameha wants peace, I agree, but he holds the title of the god of war, and he must hand it to me. If he doesn't, then war it is." Kahumanu tried to persuade him, saying, "If we keep fighting like this, Kahekili will crush us and rule all of Hawaii. Please agree." But he bluntly refused. Kiana looked at his wife and said, "I told you from the start this man wouldn't agree, and yet you brought him an offer of peace. A man like this has to be removed." He pulled out his pistol and aimed it at Kiowa. Kiowa said, "I don't fear the weapons of pale-skinned foreigners. War is coming." Kiana grew furious but held himself back and didn't shoot. Kiowa continued, "Your father was a great man, but you've disgraced his name. You speak the stranger's tongue and live like them. We'll meet soon on the battlefield." Then he left with his men. Kobohi was upset with Kiana and said to him, "You couldn't stay quiet for just 2 minutes. Why did you have to interrupt and ruin the plan? We could have reached a peace agreement." At that moment, Tony brought in a large shipment of weapons and began distributing them to the people, explaining how to use the rifle step by step. First clean it, then load the gunpowder, then the small bullet, then aim and pull the trigger. They all started learning how to shoot. Meanwhile, Kiowa went back to the fortune teller, who was standing alone. He told her, "Kiana has come with weapons, but I'm not afraid. I want to call upon the ancestors to help me in this war." She told him, "My son, no matter what you do, you can't defeat them. They have the gods of war on their side. That's why your father never lost, because the power of the war gods was with him. No matter what we do, we'll be defeated." Kiana returned to Kamehameha and told him, "We went to Kiowa with an offer of peace, but he refused. He only wants war." Moku was present and said, "If we don't act quickly, the other chiefs will see us as weak. We must attack him now. Any delay won't serve us." Kamehameha replied, "I won't drag myself into the spiral of war. Once I disappeared from the council and went at night to a village in Puna, and I was attacked there. Even my canoe paddle was broken." Moku asked, "Where were your guards? Why didn't they protect you? I'll punish them right away." Kamehameha said, "It wasn't their fault. I left without telling anyone, and the people attacked me because they thought I was a thief coming to plunder. Later I met the elders of the village, and when they realized who I was, they were afraid." Kiana said, "Fear is a powerful tool." Kamehameha answered, "I don't want to rule people through fear. Starting today, there is a new law, the law of peace. Anyone who comes near us or tries to harm us, we won't kill them as long as our lives aren't in direct danger. Killing will only happen if our lives are threatened, whether the person is an ordinary man or from the royal family." Elsewhere, Kakili was sitting when Kiowa came to him. Kakili welcomed him and asked, "Why have you come?" Kiowa replied, "I heard you speak of a prophecy that someone will come to rule over all, but I think that prophecy is a lie. There's a man named Kamehameha who has taken everything from me. He possesses powers that should be mine, the powers of the war gods. That's why I ask you to stand by me in battle." Kakili realized that the Hawaiian kingdom had become divided and said, "Why shouldn't I just kill you here and take Hawaii for myself?" Kiowa answered, "If you kill me, the entire kingdom of Hawaii will unite against you, and history shows your kingdom has never defeated Hawaii when it was united." Kakili asked, "And if I help you, what do I gain in return?" Kiowa said, "Peace will reign in my kingdom, and the prophecy you spread will be promoted among my people too. It's in your favor, and in the future, Hawaii will never stand against you." Kakili looked at him and said, "I see fire in your eyes. Fine, I'll send you a battalion to help." Kiowa left, and Kaikili spoke to his son Kupoli, saying, "Hawaii is divided, and this is our chance. Go find a man named Oboni, and tell him to join Kiowa." Kupoli said, "Why him? He's reckless and always causes trouble. Send me instead. I'll get the job done." Kaikili replied, "Oboni can do what you cannot. This mission suits him." Kupoli went into the forest and found Oboni. He told him, "You must stand with Kiowa and go to Maui to fight there. This is a royal command." Oboni said, "If it's a royal command, why didn't the king send his son? Why send me? Fine, I'll go to Maui and help Kiowa win, but after that, I'll take the victory for myself. I'll kill him and take his place." Kupoli said, "My father never ordered you to kill Kiowa." Oboni replied, "I know your father's game well, whether you understand it or not, and I'm ready to play it." Meanwhile, Kahumanu went to Kamehameha and said, "You called for me." Kamehameha said, "Bring Kiana. We need him in the council, but are his intentions clear?" Kahumanu answered, Kiana doesn't see the world the way we do. His ideas are different. He also wants peace, but in his own way, through blood and war to achieve it. Kamehameha asked, "Do you trust him?" She replied, "I trust he'll make the right decision." Then Kamehameha walked away. Her father approached her and said, "Kamehameha always listens to you. You're the reason Kiana and Kamehameha have united this way. Together, they're hard to break, and their decisions won't change easily." Kahumanu said, "If those two stay together, I can't be sure what they'll do, but we need them badly for what's coming." Her father warned her, "If your plan doesn't work out, everyone will blame you because you're the one who goes around speaking to people, even to Kiana's wife, Kobohi. You stand with both sides, even though their ideas oppose each other." Then he left. Finally, we see another Spanish ship approaching the island. On board was a man named Marley, who had a history of conflict with Kiana. That meant the Spaniards were planning to attack this island as well. And with this tension, the episode ends. The episode begins in Kamehameha's tribe, where they're celebrating the birth of a new child. Kamehameha himself joins the celebration and tells the people of the tribe that this child belongs to all of them, and together, they will raise him. At that moment, Kahumanu was sitting nearby listening, feeling sad, because as we mentioned before, she cannot have children, but Kamehameha doesn't know that. Anyway, the celebration continues. Everyone is happy, and the joy is overflowing. Meanwhile, on the other side by the island's shore, we see Metcalf and Marley landing with their men on the island. The moment they spotted sandalwood, they couldn't believe their eyes and rushed to start cutting it down. Back at the celebration, the fun was still going strong. Nahi was holding a pig and joking around with the kids, making everyone laugh so hard they could barely breathe. Incredible, this Nahi. Kamehameha walked over to Kahumanu and asked, "So what about you? Anything coming our way?" Kahumanu replied, "It's all in fate's hands, Master Kamehameha." At that moment, Kayana noticed a woman from a distance staring at him. He took Kahumanu along and went to meet her. It turned out the woman was a spy Kayana had recruited to keep an eye on Kiowa. She told him that Kiowa was very well protected, surrounded by all his warriors, making it nearly impossible for anyone to get close enough to assassinate him. Kayana dismissed her, saying, "All right, you can leave now." Afterward, Kahumanu confronted Kayana and asked, "What are you doing? Didn't Kamehameha say he doesn't want war?" Kayana answered, "Kamehameha isn't cautious enough. The whole world is conspiring against us, and it seems the man wants a Nobel Peace Prize or something, living as if he's the champion of peace. But we have to strike first before they bring us down. In short, we either eat them for lunch or they'll eat us for dinner. What do you think, Kahumanu? Sometimes I feel you're with me, and other times I feel you're with Kamehameha." Kahumanu told him, "That's exactly it. I see truth in both your way of thinking and your husband's." Kayana replied, "That can't work. You either follow my way of thinking or you follow your husband's." Meanwhile, Metcalf, Marley, and the men with them began cutting sandalwood. As they worked, a boy from the tribe spotted them. The moment they saw him, they chased after him, determined to silence him before he could return to the tribe and report what they were doing. The boy ran. They ran after him, back and forth, until suddenly the boy stopped. They froze too, not realizing he had led them straight into an ambush. In an instant, the tribe's warriors surrounded them in a circle and captured them. Back with Kayana and Kahumanu, she told him that John, who had been staying in the tribe, had taught her many things about the traditions of other nations. For example, she said, when a king dies, his wife becomes queen in his place. Kayana laughed and asked, "Wait, do you want to be queen or something?" She replied, "That's not what I meant. There's something else John told me, and I really like it, Kayana. He said that when a man greets a woman, he bows a little, takes her hand, and kisses it." Kayana reached for her hand to kiss it and try this custom, but Kahumanu stopped him and said, "No, wait, you must kneel first." Without hesitation, Kayana knelt. At that moment, a woman arrived and told Kahumanu that Kamehameha was looking for her. Kahumanu left with her, but between her and Kayana, there was an exchange of glances, something more than ordinary. Later, Kayana returned to his hut, where he found his wife Kupuohi sulking, her face so long and sour it seemed he might trip over it himself. She asked him, "Where have you been?" He answered, "I was with Kahumanu." She said, "I see that you and Kahumanu have been talking quite a lot lately." Kayana told her, "She has a sharp mind. I like listening to her ideas because they're useful to me." Kupuohi responded, "Yes, but I think she's starting to influence you." Kayana reassured her, "Of course not. I need you on my side, Kupuohi, because you have influence over the chiefs, including Kamehameha." Kupuohi looked at him and said, "I want you to change the way you treat me. Otherwise, you'll end up losing everyone around you, and losing me as well." At that moment, Tony came to Kiana and told him a ship had arrived carrying Marley, and that Marley and his men had already been captured. On the other side, Kamehameha, Moku, and John went to meet Metcalf and Marley. Metcalf and Marley told Kamehameha that they had come with the intention of trade, with no thought of war or harm. Metcalf managed to speak kindly and convincingly to Kamehameha, making him believe that his intentions were purely about trade. Kamehameha said, "All right, let me think about this. Until I decide, you and your men must remain on your ship." He returned to the tribe and sat with Kiana. Kiana warned him, "Don't trust Metcalf and Marley. Those two are snakes. Don't believe them." Kamehameha asked, "Why?" "The man seems sincere. I've seen nothing from him that suggests otherwise." At that point, Kiana and Tony told him about what Marley had done to Tony, and Kiana pressed further. "If these people don't get what they want willingly, they'll take it by force. Don't trust them. Kamehameha, we should finish them off and never allow them to return. If they go back, they'll alert people we don't want knowing about our islands. These people are dangerous, and fighting them will be extremely hard." He was referring to the Spanish forces, but Kamehameha wasn't concerned. He saw them as kind, charming, and harmless, and felt that Kiana was simply trying to push his own will and control the tribe. That didn't sit well with Kamehameha, and he rejected Kiana's advice, deciding to follow his own judgment. That same night, Kiana sat with his siblings, his wife, and the whole family. Tony was there too, in his usual annoying way. While they were sitting together, Kiana suddenly decided to take Tony with him and head straight to Marley's ship to finish him off. He told his brothers to come with him. Namake refused, but Nahi agreed and went along. They quickly took a small canoe, rowed to the ship, and snuck aboard until they reached Marley. Kiana woke him and said, "Now tell me, what exactly is your real intention for coming here? And say it quickly, because the stench here is choking me. What are you people up to, lying here as if you're asleep?" Unfortunately, Kiana couldn't finish Marley off, because at that moment Metcalf and his men managed to capture Nahi. So Kiana and Tony went back up to the deck with Marley in Kiana's grip, and suddenly everyone had their weapons pointed at each other. Then, out of nowhere, Kamehameha arrived and said to Kiana, "Didn't I tell you these people are under my protection? And didn't I also tell you we would not kill any of them? Why don't you ever listen and hear me well? Kiana, if you kill Marley, then the broken paddle law will be carried out on you. In other words, if you take his life, we'll take yours. It's your choice if you want to die in front of this man who hasn't bathed in a month." Kiana had no choice but to release Marley. He lowered his weapon, and Tony lowered his too. Kamehameha looked at Metcalf, and Metcalf ordered his men to lower their weapons as well. Kiana, Kamehameha, and all the men left the ship and returned to the tribe. Back there, Kamehameha spoke to Kiana once more, telling him, "If we send a message in blood, it will be answered in blood. Don't provoke evil, Kiana." Kiana argued, "I want to protect the tribe from these people. I know they are dangerous." Kamehameha replied, "That burden isn't yours, it's mine. It's my duty to protect the tribe, not yours. But I'll give you a compromise. I'll send John to them with food and water, and he'll tell them to return to their land peacefully. There will be no trade between us and them." Kiana protested, "Don't let them leave. If they return, they'll come back with much greater force. Listen to me and finish them here." But Kamehameha repeated, "Blood will only bring more blood. I don't want wars or killing. I want peace. Someone give this man a Nobel Peace Prize already." Of course, Kiana hated this response and indirectly called Kamehameha a fool who understood nothing before walking away. He then confronted Namake, saying, "So you've been snitching on me to Kamehameha? Have you lost your mind, Namake? I'm your brother." Namake answered calmly, "Relax. I didn't do that. Yes, I believe Kamehameha is our leader, but that doesn't mean I would ever betray you or run off to snitch on you." It turns out the one who told Kamehameha was none other than Kupuohi. The next day, John went to meet with Namake and Marley. They weren't pleased with the message. They told John, "We came here with good intentions, only to trade. Trade will bring prosperity to everyone." John answered, "I'm just carrying orders, believe me. Take your food and water and leave this place. Kamehameha actually likes you, but he believes trade between you and us won't succeed. So please leave before any problems happen." They didn't like that answer. One of them muttered to John, "There's treasure buried here," and walked away. But the look on his face showed nothing but malice. Meanwhile, Kiana was training with pistols and knives, trying to release the warlike energy and frustration bottled up inside him. At that moment, Kahumanu came to him again. Kiana began complaining about Kupuohi, telling her that his wife had betrayed him to Kamehameha, and even claimed his visit to the West had changed him. Kahumanu asked, "Is that true? Did it change you?" Kiana admitted, "Yes, it's true. That visit opened my eyes to so many things our gods could never explain. Kahumanu, I can see that what's coming will be very hard. Please stand by me in front of Kamehameha." She told him, "Be patient." At that moment, Kiana took her hand and kissed it again, then leaned in closer. The two exchanged a look of mutual admiration. Suddenly, they spotted his ship approaching once more, but this time it was heading toward a tribe made up of civilians, away from the warriors. Kiana was baffled, since they had already been ordered to leave. He ran quickly toward that tribe, which happened to be where Vi was. Everyone in the tribe looked at the ship from a distance and wondered, what is that enormous ship? They were mesmerized by it. On board, one of the men blew into a horn to summon the crew to man the cannons. At that moment, Metcalf ordered all his men to load the cannons with nails. Marley said to him, "Captain, calm down. Don't do this." But Metcalf was determined to go through with it. Meanwhile, the villagers heard the sound of the horn and thought the ship was playing music. They were overjoyed, amazed by the sight of such a massive vessel. On the other side, Ka'ahumanu rushed to Moku and told him what was happening. Moku immediately ordered the warriors to assemble. Kamehameha, realizing the danger, admitted to himself that Kiana had been right all along. At that same time, the fortune-teller, Taula, the same one Kiana had seen at the beginning, was mourning and wailing, sensing disaster was coming. And indeed, the disaster struck. Metcalf commanded his men to fire the cannons directly at the unarmed civilians in the village. Vi, realizing what was happening, shouted for everyone to run, but it was too late. The cannons fired, nails tearing through people's bodies. Many were killed instantly, others were left gravely injured. Vi rushed to save whoever she could. She spotted a young girl standing right in front of the cannons, sprinted to her, pulled her into her arms, and shielded her with her own body. Vi was struck by shrapnel herself. After the massacre, Metcalf ordered his men to stop and said, "That's enough, let's go." But before leaving, he turned to Marley and said, "You've cost me a lot of money. Get off my ship." He forced Marley to jump overboard, mocking, "Just imagine what will happen to you when Kiana and Kamehameha catch you." Meanwhile, Kiana arrived at the village, though still at some distance. From afar, he saw the village in flames, bodies scattered everywhere. He looked upon the devastation with grief burning in his eyes, but also with a silent vow of vengeance against those who had caused such horror. At the start of episode 8, we saw the seawater along the shore turn red with blood. People were either gravely injured or dead, and Kayana's family was doing everything they could to help the survivors. Namake noticed that the attack had also involved bullets. Soon after, Kayana stepped forward and found Vi's family grieving over her death, so he went to comfort them. That's when King Nala Kamehameha arrived with his army. The moment Kayana saw him, his blood boiled, and he moved toward him. But Kupuohi stopped him and told him, "Not now. Any action here won't be in our favor." Kayana glared at Kamehameha, but walked away with Kupule. Kamehameha himself was devastated by the loss of his people. Later, Kayana entered the council and declared, 28 are dead, and who knows how many of the injured will also die. You're the reason for all of this." Moku replied, "Nobody could have known this would happen." Kayana shot back, "I told you, they should have been dealt with." Moku argued, "You're not God." Kayana answered, "This isn't about God. It's your fault because you let armed men leave." Moku retorted, "Maybe because you scared them. That's why they did this." Kayana grabbed Moku, but when he noticed Kahumanu watching, he let go. Kamehameha told him to calm down. Kayana warned him, "If you keep leading like this, all your people will die quickly," and stormed out. Kahumanu followed him, with Kamehameha and Moku seeing them leave. She told Kayana, "We still have much to do together. Don't walk away from us now." Kayana said, "Kamehameha is putting people at risk." She answered, "Your way was right, but it was also dangerous. That's why no one could predict what happened." Kayana replied, "You know war is coming." She told him, "I must remain by Kamehameha's side." Kayana warned her, "Then be ready," and left. That night, Kamehameha asked Kahumanu, "Was I wrong not to listen to Kayana?" She answered, "What happened, happened." Kamehameha said, "My people were punished for misunderstanding my words, and that's unjust." Kahumanu was torn, unsure how to support him, and Kamehameha went out, heavy with grief for the dead. Meanwhile, Kayana told his household, "We can't stay here any longer." Nahi agreed, but Kupuohi and Heke opposed the idea. Nahi added, "We can't keep jumping from place to place." Then looked at Kayana and said, "Back then, I followed you because I felt you feared nothing. That's why I stood by you, but now you're here." When he went out into the world, Nahi thought Kayana would return braver than before, but instead, he felt he had come back full of fear. Nahi told him, "I'm not leaving. I'll stay here and face whatever happens." Kayana replied, "Tomorrow morning we're leaving, and you must come with us." But Nahi refused and walked away. Not long after, Kayana was burning with anger when Kupuohi approached him. She said, "I sided with Kamehameha and I was wrong. I should have stood with you, because if I had, our people might have been saved. Ever since you came back, you've changed so much." Kayana answered, "And you've changed too." Kupuohi said, "Together, we were stronger." Then she comforted him and stood by his side. Meanwhile, in the Maui tribe, we saw Kupoli with his lover Chad, who had decided to return to their homeland in the kingdom of Maui. Chad told him, "My family has served yours for generations, but I'm leaving because your father is becoming obsessed." Kupoli replied, "My father is fine. Chad said, "When the time comes, you'll see." Kupoli responded, "I've seen his eyes change. He's only upset. Nothing more will happen to him." After that, Kupoli went off to see his father. In the forest, Heke was planting saplings in memory of the dead and praying for them. Nahi came to her, and the two of them decided they didn't want to leave and move to another tribe. Heke asked, "Is death coming for us?" Nahi answered, "For a warrior, death is always at the door, but I don't want to fight anymore. I just want to stay with you." They kissed and shared a tender moment. Elsewhere in the forest, Kiowa arrived with Opunui, the fierce warrior from the Maui tribe. He ordered his men to cut down the surrounding trees and told them that if they found anyone from Kamehameha's people, they should capture them and bring them to him, because cutting the trees would draw them out. The men set to work, the sound of axes and saws carrying through the forest until it reached Heke and Nahi. They crept forward and peeked out from hiding, where they saw Kiowa holding Kamehameha's priests captive. Kiowa proclaimed, "I am the true king of all the forests, and you." Kiowa continued, saying, "I brought you here to punish you." At that moment, Heke and Nahi were retreating to warn everyone, but the Maui warriors caught them. Their leader, Opunui, stepped forward and said, "Nahi, brother of Kayana, I'd heard Kayana was dead, but if he's alive, then this is the perfect chance to kill him." They dragged them both to Kiowa. The moment Nahi saw Kiowa, his fury ignited, and he attacked him. Heke ran, and the warriors chased after her. Nahi grabbed Kiowa and beat him. But Kiowa was no easy opponent. Using his skill, he dodged Nahi's strikes, countered, and finally caught him, twisting his neck and killing him instantly. Then he lifted a massive stone. Meanwhile, Opunui brought Heke forward. Kiowa crushed Nahi's skull in front of her eyes. Heke was shattered, broken inside. Kiowa leaned close and said, "Tell Kamehameha the game of death has begun. Even false gods like Kayana's won't save him." Opunui added, "And I'll send Kayana my own message." He took Heke and left. Soon after, Opunui assaulted Heke. She later returned, bathing to cleanse herself, then went back to her tribe. Weak and trembling, she collapsed into the arms of her people, telling them that Kiowa had Opunui with him and that Nahi was dead. Kayana and Namake rushed to the place, while Kupuohi stayed behind with Heke to comfort her. Later, Kayana and Namake arrived and found Nahi's lifeless body. Kayana was devastated, broken by his brother's death. Namake tried to hold him up. That night, they prepared Nahi's bones for burial. Namake placed the bones in a bundle and handed them to Kayana. The brothers embraced one last time. Then Kayana left, walking until dawn, climbing a distant mountain. There, he laid his brother's remains and vowed, "I swear I will cut off the hand of the one who killed my brother. No matter what, he won't escape me." His heart was shattered, and he cried out in anguish across the mountains. Meanwhile, Kiowa was at the volcano, praying to his god for victory. To appease him, he offered a human sacrifice, throwing the body into the molten lava, pleading for blessings and a divine sign that would bring him triumph. On the other side, we saw Kahekili drinking heavily from the potion that once let him see the future. The potion, brewed from a special kind of fish, left him intoxicated, and because he had begun drinking it constantly, the visions no longer came as before. He went to sit by the sacred bones of the pond temple, asking them for a sign, but the bones gave him nothing, so he began smashing them. Kupoli was in anguish, watching his father's condition. He told him, "Father, that potion has consumed you." Kahekili shoved him aside and kept breaking the bones. Kupoli, desperate to free his father from his madness, took up a knife and tried to strike him, but Kahekili caught his hand, took the blade, and stabbed his own son, killing him. Kupoli fell dying before him. Kahekili called for the healers, begging them to save him, holding his son in his arms. Meanwhile, word reached Kamehameha that the priests had been killed, along with Kayana's brother, and that Kiowa had been seen with the Maui army. Kamehameha said, "Then it's war. Let's see how true these prophecies turn out to be." Ka'ahumanu urged, "If Maui is with Kiowa, we must call on Kayana. He knows all the tactics of war." But Kamehameha replied, "We don't need Kayana or his guns. We'll win with the power of the god of war," and he walked away. Ka'ahumanu, upset, went to the shore to think about what lay ahead. Moku found her there and said, "All you ever speak of is Kayana, but he's not even part of the council right now. You need to stand with Kamehameha," she told him. "He's on the wrong path, and I can't support that. I'm doing exactly what you asked me to." Moku replied, "Then your mistake is my mistake." Ka'ahumanu said, "You're the smartest man here. You brought me into this place. You wanted Kamehameha to be king, and you achieved that, but what will you do with what comes next? Even you don't know." Moku warned her, "Kamehameha no longer listens to you. That's why you won't be able to tell him anything," and he walked away. At that time, Heke was shattered and refusing to eat. Kupuohi worried over her. Stepping outside, Kupuohi saw Kayana and Namake preparing weapons. Kayana said, "I'm going to kill Kiowa." Namake wanted to go with him, but Kayana refused. Then Kupuohi said, "I know every path around Kiowa's place." Kayana answered, "Then the two of us will go tonight." Kupuohi went down into the forest where she found Ka'ahumanu practicing stone throwing. Kupuohi told her, "Tonight we're going to finish Kiowa ourselves." Ka'ahumanu answered, You'll be killed there. Kamehameha also wants to fight Kiowa without Kayana and his guns, and with the Maui warriors by his side, we won't be able to defeat him. Kupohi insisted, without the guns, he won't win. Kahumanu said, he doesn't listen to me anymore. Kupohi replied, men spend their whole lives training to be warriors, but the moment they face death, they act foolishly. Meanwhile, Kayana was preparing his weapons when Kahumanu came to him and said, you're going to kill Kiowa, but if you go, you and your family could be slaughtered. And even if you abandon everything and walk away, the Maui tribe won't spare you. Once they finish with you, they'll hunt down your family one by one. You want revenge for your brother, but instead of dying for him, live for him. She walked away, leaving Kayana deep in thought. Elsewhere, Heka saw a man at a pond in the forest fishing with medicinal flowers. When he left, she gathered some of the flowers, ones used to induce miscarriage, because she absolutely refused to risk bearing a child by Opunui. At the same time, Kamehameha was preparing for war in the temple of the war god. Kupuohi came to him, and he said, if you've come to talk about your husband, I won't discuss it. Kupuohi replied, I came for everyone's sake. If you fight Kiowa while he has the Maui warriors, you'll be defeated. Maui's army is brutally strong, and you're underestimating them. If you want to beat them, you need Kayana and his guns. Kamehameha said, we will not use the weapons of pale-skinned foreigners. Kupuohi countered, Kayana has always followed the prophecy. He traveled the world, and in the end, he came back here with the guns. Maybe God sent these weapons for you. We need to understand the message. She left, and Kamehameha stood there, lost in thought. At night, Kayana sat in the forest, reflecting on what was to come. When darkness fell, he met Kamehameha, who was broken by Nahi's death and desperate to avenge him. Kayana said, I love my family as much as the moon, yet I failed to give them a proper home or even a place under a just king. And now, after Nahi's death, I couldn't protect them. All of this is my fault. Kamehameha replied, I too wanted to be a good king and bring good to everyone, but now the blood of our people is on my hands. My uncle gave me the god of war, and I tried to listen to him and understand him so I could fight and gain his strength. But to this day, I haven't heard his voice. Maybe his language has changed. Kayana asked, what do you mean? Kamehameha answered, I mean, maybe we need to use the guns. The next day, Kahumanu heard the sound of gunfire. She rushed out and saw Kayana and Kamehameha training together in marksmanship with many different rifles. Both Kahumanu and Kupuohi witnessed the scene and were overjoyed to see that Kayana and Kamehameha had reconciled. Meanwhile, at the volcano, Opunui's men were training Kiowa's warriors, but they proved weak. Opunui told Kiowa, you want war, but your men are weak. Pray the battle doesn't start yet. Kiowa only laughed. Suddenly, the ground shook. Delighted, Kiowa began praying to his god for a sign, and then the volcano erupted before him. Kiowa proclaimed, the god has sent us a sign for war. All of you, prepare. His people began their preparations. The sound of the eruption reached Kamehameha's kingdom. At that moment, Kamehameha, Kayana, and Namake realized the signal was meant for them as much as for Kiowa. War was now at their doorstep, and all three of them stood ready to fight. And so, this intense episode came to an end. If you want to keep watching and see what happens next, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Episode 9 starts with Kiwa still standing by his volcano, the one he insists on calling God Bili. Suddenly, the chief of a nearby tribe shows up and says, sorry, Master Kiwa, I was wrong to oppose you before. Please forgive me. I'll join your army, because God Bili has spoken and declared you the true king. Kiwa looks at him and replies, it's not that simple. You doubted my legitimacy, and now you come back so easily? No, my friend, there's a price to pay. The tribal chief hands him a staff, saying, here, Master Kiwa, this staff has been passed down from our ancestors. It carries the power of our entire tribe. One of Kiwa's men grabs the staff and strikes the chief with it. Then Kiwa smirks and says, I don't want your staff. What I really want is your upper row of teeth. My grandma lost all of hers, and we've been looking for a fitting set for her dentures. So the chief starts smashing his own face until all his upper teeth fall out. Kiwa takes them and tosses them into the volcano as an offering. Only then does he allow that tribe to rejoin him. Meanwhile, in the Kamehameha tribe, we see Kamehameha appointing Kiwa as something like his Minister of Defense. After giving him the title, Kamehameha calls for Kahumanu and brings her into the council chamber. The men of the council are immediately upset and uncomfortable. How could a woman step into a council meant only for men? But Kamehameha ignores their disapproval and declares that Kahumanu will be one of the council members, and he will also seek her advice. The council members don't like it one bit, but no one dares speak up against Kamehameha. None of them were pleased, except for Kiwa, who was the only one truly happy for Kahumanu. Later on, Kiana sits down chatting with his friend Tony. Tony opens up and tells him that his life before was pure misery, that he went through so much just because of the color of his skin. He says that ever since he came to these islands, for the first time he feels like there's no difference between him and anyone else here. Kiana nods and says, "That's true, Tony, my brother. Look, we're heading into war now, but I want you to know, if anything happens to me, the people of this island are already your family. So from now on, you're one of us." Tony feels deeply touched by those words. Kiana leaves him with a smile and, as usual, goes to check on his weapons. There he runs into his brother Namaki. Namaki says, "Kiana, forgive me, but we're about to go into a war and no one knows if we'll come back alive. So there's something important I need to tell you. When you disappeared for a year, at first we kept waiting for you, but months passed and you never returned. We thought you were dead and the grief was crushing us. In that time, I found comfort with Kupohi and she found comfort with me. You could say we leaned on each other. We betrayed you, Kiana." Kiana looks at Namaki, steps toward him, and reaches out his arms to hug him. He tells him, "You didn't betray your brother. You too didn't know I was still alive. I already lost Nahi, and I'm not ready to lose you too." Then the scene shifts to the kingdom of Maui, where King Kahakili sits with his son Kupoli, who has started to recover little by little. At that moment, the king brings in his son's treacherous friend, a rope tied around his neck, ready to finish him off. Kupoli pleads with his father, begging him not to kill the boy, saying it's enough punishment already. At the last moment, the king spares the traitor's life and says, "Take him away. I will purify him myself later." "Excuse me, sir. Purify him yourself? What is he, bacteria?" Anyway, we head back to the kingdom of Oahu, where Kahumanu goes to speak with Kiana. She asks him, "What's wrong? What's on your mind?" Kiana replies, "I feel like this whole thing is spiraling out of control. Kiwa already has his men, and now he's got Kahakili's warriors too. Plus that volcano Billy is on his side. Honestly, Kahumanu, it feels like the gods are with him, and we're about to be crushed." But Kahumanu reassures him, reminding him that they have the red-mouthed weapons. In other words, guns and rifles. She insists that Kiwa won't be able to stand against them. After that, Kiana goes to speak with Heike, who is still grieving over the death of her husband. Kiana tells her, "I understand what you're going through. No matter what I say, I can't really feel the pain you feel right now." Then he hands her the war armor that once belonged to her late husband, Nahi. Heike looks at him and says, "You know what? I want to fight alongside you in this war." Kiana agrees and hugs her. The next morning, the entire tribe prepares for battle. Kiana puts on his war armor. Kahumanu wears the ceremonial necklace symbolizing her new status, and Kamehameha dons his own battle armor, but with a heavy heart. He admits to Kahumanu that he's saddened by the thought of so many people dying today, and that he never wanted to kill anyone from his kingdom, whether they were allies or enemies. Still, they all gather at the sacred place of worship to perform their religious rituals before the war. There, Kamehameha prays aloud before everyone, calling on his gods to give him strength against Kiwa. At that very moment, a feather drifts down from the sky and lands on Kiana. Kamehameha realizes then that Kiana must be the chosen one, and he suddenly feels certain they will win this war. Not Kiwa, not the volcano Billy. With renewed faith, Kamehameha marches his army toward Kiwa, who of course is stationed by the volcano. The volcano rumbles and shakes, unstable and ominous. When they finally arrive, Kamehameha declares, "First, let the holy battle begin." And what is the holy battle? The priests of both sides line up, chanting and calling on their gods. When Kiwa's priests call out to theirs, the volcano suddenly roars and shakes violently. Kiwa and his men cheer in triumph, while Kamehameha and his men begin to grow uneasy. But their determination kept their spirits burning. Once the prayers ended, we moved into the phase of verbal dueling. This time, Abonui stepped forward and started hurling insults at Kamehameha and his entire people. "Come on, you irrigation bilharzia bunch, you seaweed snack. Depending on Kiana, huh? That coward who runs from every battle, the man no kingdom would keep? Oh, what a choice. You pack of salmon." Kiana stepped up to answer him. "You forget yourself, Abonui, don't you? You're the one who grovels before any king just to lick up scraps. That belly of yours is stuffed with leftovers Kahakili tosses you. You're nothing but a dog with no will of your own. Kahakili points you left or right, and you obey like a mutt. And now Kiwa has you wagging your tail for him too." Kiana kept going, unleashing more and more sharp words, so biting I can't even repeat them all here. But the point was clear. Abonui was no man to be respected. Infuriated, Abonui ordered his men to throw spears at Kiana. But we all know Kiana's gift. No spear ever touches him. He walked calmly, speaking with full confidence, dodging every spear as if mocking Abonui, Kiwa, and all their warriors. As usual, Kiana finally snapped snatched the last spear from the air. Then he turned to his army and shouted, "See these spears? Soft and flimsy. These aren't strong men we're fighting. If we just charge at them, they'll soil themselves before lifting a hand." His entire army burst out laughing, their voices echoing across the battlefield. That laughter drove Kiwa and Abonui into a rage. Kiana then challenged them. "If any of you think you're a man, come face me here." Immediately, Abonui sent in the first squad to finish Kiana off, but they never even got close. Kiana ordered his army to fire, and the whole squad was wiped out by gunfire. Abonui sent the second squad, but they met the same fate, falling under the hail of bullets. After that, Kiana led his warriors in a full-on charge. The battle erupted into chaos, and Kiana fought with his weapons more than with rifles or pistols, because he wanted to feel he was personally avenging his brother's death. He and Namaki unleashed their fury together, cutting through the enemy forces, and alongside them fought Tony, Kahumanu, Kamehameha, and even Kupohe, all united in the clash. After that, Kiana goes straight for Kiwa's priest. With no hesitation, he ends his life right there, then grabs his tongue and yanks it straight out of his mouth. Kiwa explodes with rage, and just to twist the knife deeper, Kiana takes a bite of the priest's tongue. Seriously, man, what do you think this is? Game of Thrones? At that moment, the volcano starts to rumble harder and harder. In the middle of the chaos, Abonui corners Heiki for the second time, and the two of them clash. Of course, Abonui dominates, about to finish her off. But from a distance, Kahumanu fires a shot, hitting Abonui in the leg. Heiki seizes the chance, pouncing on him. First, she shatters his shoulders. Then she pulls out a blade smeared with that deadly rose poison and starts stabbing him. Once in the stomach, once in the chest, once in the jaw, and finally in his eyes. Done? Not even close. She then grabs a heavy rock, stuffs it in his mouth, and stomps down on his head with all her strength. In short, she turned Abonui into minced meat. Back in the battlefield, the volcano grows wilder, and Kiana is wielding his rifle every possible way, sometimes shooting waha, sometimes smashing skulls with the stock, sometimes thrusting it like a spear. He improvises with deadly creativity. In that same moment, Kupohe suffers a serious wound, but Namaki rushes to her aid, unleashing havoc on everyone around her. Meanwhile, a warrior beside Kiwa hurls a spear at Kiana. As always, Kiana snatches it midair and drives it through the man, sending him flying so far it looked like he'd been hit with an RPG instead of a spear. Right then, the volcano fully loses its temper. The ground splits open, swallowing most of Kiwa's warriors alive. Kiwa realizes the horrible truth. Neither the volcano nor the so-called god Bili is on his side. Still, he keeps praying desperately to Bili. "Have mercy on me! Let me live, Bili!" But across the battlefield, Kiana raises his pistol, aims it directly at Kiwa, ready to end him once and for all. But just then, the volcano erupts right between them, blasting both Kiana and Kiwa into the air. When the smoke clears, it's revealed that Kiwa is dead, and not just dead, but barbecued. As for Kiana, he's lying motionless on the ground. Kahumanu runs to him, holds him tight, and cries over him as if he were her husband. Kamehameha just stands there in shock, silent, unable to speak. Even Kahumanu's father looks on, stunned. Then suddenly, Kiana stirs. He's alive. Not only alive, he rises to his feet and embraces Kahumanu. All the warriors cheer him as their victorious leader. But Kiana waves them down and tells them to cheer for Kamehameha instead, honoring him before the whole army. He himself joins in praising Kamehameha. Meanwhile, we notice Kupohe lying in Namaki's arms and Heiki clutching her late husband's war armor. Kahumanu returns to Kamehameha's side while Kiana silently watches it all unfold. Cut to the kingdom of Maui. Prince Kupoli's friend rushes to King Kaakili, reporting everything that happened in the battle and revealing that Kiana survived. Kaakili erupts. "What, Kiana is alive? Perfect. I wanted to grind his bones into powder, drink it, and steal his strength." He then orders, "Prepare our army. We march to attack them." And with that, episode 9, the final episode of season 1, comes to an end. Which clearly means, yep, there's going to be a season 2. But the real mystery, Marley still hasn't shown up. Seriously, where is he? Somebody please give us an update on Marley. Anyway, until we find out, smash that like button, drop a comment, and share so the video can reach more people. And if this is your first time here and you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any new videos. See you all in the next one.